Hey,
Good day,
Sima.
everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jack Mulligan, president of Provision Networks, and I'd like to welcome you to today's discussion, the hidden cloud tax, where your IT budget is quietly disappearing and how to get it back. Over the last several months, we've had a tremendous amount of engagement around cloud cost visibility, cloud complexity, and what we call the hidden cloud tax. The reality that the reality that many organizations are experiencing is that rising cloud spend without a clear understanding of where the money is actually going. The challenge isn't that cloud costs are inherently unpredictable. More often than not, they're simply unmanaged. Resources accumulate, workloads evolve, environments grow, and before long, organizations find themselves asking why cloud continues to increase despite their best intentions. The good news is that most cloud waste isn't hidden because it's difficult to find. It's hidden because nobody has had the time or visibility to look at it systematically. That's what today's session is all about. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to discuss some of the most common sources of cloud waste, practical ways to identify them, and a simple framework organizations can use to improve visibility and financial control. We're also going to spend a few minutes discussing AWS and Azure funding programs that may be available to support cloud migration, modernization, and optimization initiatives. Joining me today is Brendan McKay. Brendan is the Strategic Cloud Solutions Manager with RapidScale. Brendan brings more than a decade of experience helping organizations develop and execute cloud, AI, SaaS, and managed service strategies. He has worked with companies ranging from emerging growth organizations to large enterprises and has extensive experience helping customers align cloud investment with business outcomes. So before we get started, I want to mention that all webinar registrants will have an opportunity to schedule a no-cost cloud cost visibility review with Provision and RapidScale. So this practical review is designed to help organizations identify hidden cloud spend, visibility gaps, and opportunities to improve financial control without disrupting operations or performance. With that, Brendan, let's start with what we're seeing in the market today and why cloud cost visibility has become such an important topic for organizations of all types.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jack. And I think it's very aptly named here. The hidden cloud tax really just kind of puts a fine point on the fact that this is just happening to a lot of organizations. And if we can shed some light on that and illuminate some pretty easy strategies right out of the gate to be able to be first be aware of and then second execute on, a lot of times if we can deconstruct those pieces of where that is and where that tax is, then we can take steps to not only recognize that, but then make steps to govern and then iterate to a point where there can be savings of 20 up to 40, sometimes more percent. So we'll get more specific. And if there are any questions as we go, please just raise your hand or shout it out. We'll make this conversational with the 20 minutes that we have. But to get into what we mean with the hidden cloud tax, this is where the IT budget, we've got ideal resources, we've got pricing mismatch, over position resources, and cloud sprawl. So if we just kind of look at those buckets really quick, for the first one, idle resources is where we don't see any usage of things that are provisioned, things that are deployed, whether that be compute, storage, databases, APIs in between that leave things on where nobody is actually in charge of this stuff. So that can run wild, that can be completely untamed, and with that over provisioning, that mismatch in terms of alignment, with any sort of strategies that we can take to box that in are not being taken by a huge number of companies, and we can get into some statistics on just the amount of that we've seen in practice and just kind of anecdotally. And then with the sprawl, that just refers to, we are adding things and there's legacy knowledge transfer that doesn't happen. So if no one has an ownership and there isn't communication interdepartmentally and things are siloed, then we can't reverse engineer that actually cloud goal back to what's being spent on our IT resources, and that just balloons out of control. So kind of taking a double click into these, some examples of some of these things would be, as you can see here, I won't just read them out to you, but biggest one honestly is that unused VMs where projects are spun up, VMs are allocated, VMs are spun up, and then they're just kind of lost and forgotten. And they're not even spun up and down in terms of usage. So we just have this kind of almost like a shadow usage that we see that is ubiquitous in almost every account that we look into here. So with that, we need to see kind of stack rank and take account of all the resources that we have, and that can happen really quickly. Just with a simple look into your, for example, of AWS, your cost usage report, or looking at your bills, just kind of deconstructing that and understanding if we can have visibility and governance on the spend across different business units, then we can allocate the costs to associated initiatives that actually, are live, aren't dormant, and aren't going to just soak up resources and spend. So that once we get to a place, where we feel that we're not over provisioned, or if we're looking at pricing models and understanding what those are actually doing for us, we can have governance of those and policies that are adopted from top down, so that this can be something that you can kind of manage up and down in terms of what's being used, but also those abilities to forecast cloud spend and those what if scenarios on the different platforms, whether that be, hey, we're all in on one hyperscaler or we're multi-cloud. We want to understand kind of the back and forth and have the adoption of this, because if we look at terms like FinOps or cloud economics, cost optimization, whatever those might be, this is something that can't just be a trickle down. Everybody has to be aware of these things, and that's why it's not a snapshot and a quick fix doesn't work. This is an ongoing strategy that we all need to kind of not only be aware of, but keep prioritized. And if we do that, then the unmanaged growth and then kind of just um, the invisible, tax, if we're going to go back to that term again, it can at least be mitigated to a point where we can understand our costs now, but also going forward. So, any thoughts or questions on that at this point?
Yeah. Hey, Brendan, we did have some advanced questions come in from folks who had a conflict, and I think you may have just answered this, but the one of the questions was, when organizations do complete our cloud cost visibility review, what are the most common issues you typically uncover? I think you may have just covered those.
Yeah. Definitely a few of those were mentioned, but just to kind of maybe round it out, one thing I hadn't touched on yet, and we can get into more as we kind of get that data collection from the cloud service providers, and those cost usage reports tell us a lot of just kind of the veneer of what the problem might be. But if we are not taking advantage of any sort of alignment with, like, enterprise discount plans, discounts, or savings plans, if we don't understand how this puzzle piece of, let's say, like reserved instances and convertibles, and things of that nature, to be able to understand when to spin up and down and when to utilize commitments for things that are going to be a long-term resources versus maybe a spot instance for more of that on-demand type compute. Those are things that right away we want to take a look at and understand. All right, how do we maybe just massage some of this so that we can have immediate savings, and then we can have savings that snowball more over time?
Yeah, it's definitely a complex environment, and IT departments shouldn't expect that they can keep up with all of this stuff themselves. We did have a few. We were getting some pretty good feedback on the cloud cost visibility review. Another question was, we might as well field this one now. What exactly happens during the review, and what information would an organization need to provide to participate?
Sure. So within that, that this is this step one. This is almost, just think of that as the discovery piece, the exploratory piece. So this is going to probably be, a lot of fun. If just a little bit of bandwidth from your side on the client side, where we want to understand, like I mentioned, for AWS would be the curve, but just those cost usage reports or, kind of historical narrative of what that spend is with like, the last 6, 12 months of bills, understand seasonality and understand how that, especially a lot of times there's volatility, that there can be major changes, easy changes with major benefits that we can make right out of the gate when we understand that seasonality, volatility, and then how that translates and aligns to how we actually just engage with consuming that spend on the cloud. So, with that, we would also, it's really important that we have some qualitative data too, because if we don't understand the business context and the nuance there, then we could make some recommendations that just truly don't make any sense for the business. So once we have that and we're able to, have conversations, roundtables, one-on-ones with, department owners, IT teams, maybe custom applications team or architecture team, we can understand, okay, we're going to how those layers go and marry those two, qualitative and quantitative, to understand, is this something that's actually going to help and not hinder them from a business perspective? How much money can we actually save them on, off the top and then ongoing? And then what are the roadblocks that we need to solve from a business perspective to be able to actually implement some of these strategies? And that's kind of where we get into stages 2 and 3. But information gathering is certainly what we need to do first of all.
One of the an area of great interest today, and I think it's been driven by the intense competition from the hyperscalers, is AWS and Azure funding. And we did get an advanced question on this one as well. And the question is, you mentioned that AWS and Azure sometimes provide funding for migration and modernization initiatives. What types of projects typically qualify, and how does an organization determine whether funding might be available? I was going to give him a quick reply on that one and say, well, contact me and I'll tell you. But go ahead and to give the audience a little color on that one.
Yeah, well, go ahead and just follow Jack's advice on that one. But if we want to, double click, those are really exciting pieces of this where, AWS and Azure, they're different, but they're similar because they're coming from the same place. They have skin in the game. They want to enable and empower you. But when we can get those two together, what do they want at the end of the day? They want you to consume more, of whatever that is, that storage, compute, that utilization of AI services or transformation, whatever it is that's going to further propel you as a client and your business. They want that to happen because that helps them and their bottom line. So the easiest way to think of this is that whatever we're going to do here, the more that you have a propensity to consume based on this project, the more that they are more than happy to shell out funding and sometimes completely subsidize products. Things that might be in that bucket would be, with the giant AI push right now, both with AWS with the MAP program and Azure with the AMP program, those are the same thing. So that accelerates migration. So it's migration acceleration program and acceleration migration program. They're getting really creative with these acronyms and differentiating. But once we're moving consumption and data and storage to them as a cloud service provider, they want to help you do that. So they, especially with the help of Rapid Scale and Provision, because of our relationships as a partner, you have the accessibility to not only the project funding, on that one-off basis, but also we can stack this with what we call co-op funding. So depending on the project, we can actually double dip into, partner-led funding as well, which translates into, the ability for us to really mitigate those capital expenses as we look towards more of a long-term cloud initiative going forward.
It sounds like a cliche to say it, but it truly is free money under the right circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay, it would not be a webinar in today's environment if we didn't talk about AI. So we do have another advanced question on AI readiness. Many organizations are preparing for AI initiatives. how does cloud cost visibility impact an organization's ability to successfully deploy AI workloads? Can you field that one?
Yeah, yeah, that's a massive one. I think it goes back to I just kind of touched on it before. So when I was alluding to the forecasting piece of things, um, this is where AI is a very kind of black box part of that for a lot of organizations. And not only do we need to understand what it's going to cost and the level of effort it's going to take to be AI ready, and that conversation used to be cloud ready. So we go off prem and we get onto cloud, but now it's okay. We're probably hybrid cloud to some extent at a certain critical mass of size, but in our cloud environment, how do we be AI ready, and what does that cost? So to answer that concisely, it's well, we need to know what that business outcome that we're going towards is going to be. So, is it workflow automation? Is it predictive maintenance in the manufacturing? Is it anything in that sort of a bucket, or is it something where we want to generate AutoCAD within the medical device industry and things like that? We have dealt with specifically. And once we know what that is, we reverse engineer how AI ready you are. So that cost is going to come down to how's your infrastructure, where are your data sources, are those data sources clean, how are those connections and APIs to the point where these can actually be utilized and leveraged to get to the mountaintop, which is an AI that's actually effective and alleviates whatever problem you were just trying to solve before. So if we can have all of that identified, then we can identify what that cost is going to be. First of all, maybe to do some remediation to get your organization and your IT estate to a place where we can, deploy an AI machine like that or an AI process. And then at that point, when we are running an AI process like that, are we utilizing TPUs? Are we doing token based? What is this going to do to my consumption, maybe from a customer utilization perspective and an internal perspective where we are generating whatever they might be calling upon. So it's really important that you have a partner or you have a team that it is aware of all of these different facets, because we don't want surprises. I mean, there's hidden cloud tax, and then there's hidden cloud just I have no idea what's going on. So it's important.
It is, and I give you a quick buzzword warning here, but the AI IT stack does need to be properly configured from the start, because we have seen this where organizations have gone in without any help and without any forethought, and they've had to break down the stack they created and start again to get the outcome that they wanted because they hadn't thought
Yeah.
it. So again, this is the foundation of the house analogy, but it is legit. So we have another advanced question, and that is on making the business case. And this is actually my favorite question, so we saved it for last because it addresses all of the skeptics out there who think that they've got this under control. For organizations that believe their cloud environment is already well managed, what would be a compelling reason to participate in a cloud cost visibility review? And I will start, other than that it's free, but go ahead, Brendan.
I mean, that's a good one. I mean, it is free, and I think that the only benefit here is that we can find with a third party, kind of a fresh set of eyes that has decades of expertise in building the first of all the foundation of the house, but also the blockades and the pitfalls, and just kind of some anecdotal pieces that can be leveraged here as we go. This is something that at the end of the day, worst case scenario is going to show you practices that and leverage you can pull yourself. But if there's something that requires a little more effort, a little more elbow grease and bandwidth, and possibly something where we just don't have talent in house, we can pull on that thread too. So maybe Jack, we can kind of go back and forth here to make sure that we can really nail this home. What do you see as benefits in going through this kind of right out of the gate? I mean, what have you
Yeah,
seen as
yeah.
far as a reaction?
I think what we see more often out there is IT departments that are incredibly spread thin. If there is one thing that me and the team hear all together too often is, well, I'm just too busy to deal with that. Well, and in fact, that's where the provisions and the rapid scales come in, because we do keep an eye on these developments, and there's a lot of statistics out there about how much can be saved, what the average cloud cost spend is. Our experience is that organizations that are pretty well run, we can still find them 20%.
Oh yeah.
I would say the average is probably 30 to 34%. That we can save through all of the reasons that we've been through on this call. And I would say, most people hire out their tax returns and they hire out their insurance procurement. Why wouldn't you bring in experts on something that's every bit or more as complex? So that's kind of our viewpoint on it.
Yeah.
We're here to
and it
help,
really
folks.
doesn't. What was that?
I said we're here to help.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we are, out of respect for everybody's time, we're trying to keep this to 20 minutes. So as we wrap up, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. I'd like to thank Brendan and the Rapid Scale team for sharing expertise and insights. If there's one message I'd leave you with, it's this: cloud costs are rarely random. More often than not, they are the result of limited visibility, evolving environments, changing workloads, and a lack of ongoing optimization. The good news is that many of the opportunities to improve cloud cost control are neither disruptive nor complicated. They start with understanding where your spend is going, who owns it, and whether it is delivering the business value you expect. Today, we discussed several common areas where organizations lose visibility and control, including idle resources, over-provisioned environments, pricing mismatches, and cloud sprawl. We also reviewed ways to identify these issues and the simple but effective framework of right-sizing, scheduling, and aligning pricing models to actual usage. And of course, we touched on AWS and Azure funding that may be available to support cloud migration, modernization, optimization, and other strategic initiatives at no cost to the end user. And so a final reminder, every registrant here has the opportunity to schedule a no-cost cloud cost visibility review with Provision and Rapid Scale. We're happy to look at your cloud environment and help in any way we can. Identify hidden cloud spend, gaps, opportunities to improve financial control, all without disrupting operations or performance. Our goal with that is not to produce another report that sits on a shelf. We want to provide practical insight into your environment and help you identify opportunities that can improve visibility, reduce waste, and support future initiatives. And with that, that is all we have today. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jack.